Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very first Mountain Forum of the year. My name is Jacob. I'm one of the content marketing leads here at Mountain, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. In today's forum, we'll be focusing on exactly what that title on your screen implies, connected TV measurement, touching on everything from misconceptions about measurement, what an effective CTV performance measurement strategy should entail, how your approach can be simplified and unified, and so much more. Now, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Lauren Reedy, Solutions Architect at Mountain, and Teja Tala, Customer Success Manager Team Lead at Rockerbox. Lauren, Teja, take a moment and tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Jacob, and hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Reedy. I'm a solutions architect at Mountain, and I actually sit on our platform team, and I get to work with a lot of our larger enterprise brands, really to help them deliver tailored solutions, provide strategic direction, and cultivate new product enhancements and integrated partnerships for our advertisers. So building solutions can take a lot of different forms, but it has included establishing a partnership with a platform like Rockerbox, which is really exciting, which has really allowed us to bring immediate and measurable results to all of our advertisers.
Hey everyone, my name's Teja. I am the CS team lead here at Rockerbox, and I help Rockerbox clients help answer their priority questions and make smart decisions with their data, leveraging Rockerbox and strategic partnerships like leveraging their data with strategic partnerships like the one we have with Mountain.
Awesome. Well, thanks y'all for introducing yourselves. Now, before we begin, I did want to remind everyone that we will have time for a Q&A at the end of today's session. So if you have a question for our speakers, feel free to drop that into the Q&A chat you should see on your screen. All right, so let's get this conversation started. So we thought it was important to talk about measurement in January as many marketers use the start of the year to set up new strategies or refine old ones. But to start this conversation more broadly, I think we'd all agree that marketing measurement, especially on CTV, has never been more important. But you could also say that it's really never been more confusing either, with so many models and methodologies out there. And in this confusion, misconceptions can start to develop about measurement and its capabilities. So, Lauren, I'll throw this to you first. What would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions marketers may have about measurement today, and how would you dispel that misconception?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question and a great place to start, because there is a lot of options out there, and the field is becoming larger and larger, a lot more channels and a lot more ways to really track and measure data. I think the biggest misconception and truthfully maybe the biggest limitation that many marketers still have is that they think they need to find and establish one singular measurement methodology that can apply across all their channels. And it's going to be their kind of like singular source of truth to determine success and inform their campaign decisions. But needless to say, there is no single holy grail of measurement methodologies that can really be applied across all your marketing efforts and all the different ways that we can track data. And the best marketers, and I think the best platforms that really understand that need for nuance and optionality, are going to provide really the best option for smart marketers. And this can apply to everything from like attribution methodologies, measurement validation, even the foundational data collection, and then the actual KPIs that you're measuring. So what makes sense for one channel or one customer journey may not apply to another. And we see oftentimes traditional things like a multi-touch attribution model, while it's straightforward for a digital channel like search, it likely does not show the true value of an offline or an unclickable channel like direct mail or even TV. So we definitely encourage our advertisers to look at, their campaign and channel performance through several different performance lenses, both from that like traditional multi-channel attribution approach to things like incremental lift analysis, media mix modeling. There's a lot of options out there to create a more well-rounded, holistic view of your marketing impact.
Yeah, absolutely. To piggyback off of that, we strongly agree at Rockerbox that there are different tools to help measure different pieces of marketing, and that it's not a one tool fits all, right? Like you spoke about, like MTA or multi-touch really helps build that strong data foundation for something like daily measurement Tools like MMM can help understand budget and forecasting for spend against revenue goals, but in a larger time frame, which makes it a little bit more limited for day-over-day attribution understandings. And then lastly, incrementality, of course, is usually like a point-in-time test to understand how some spends provide incremental lifts for businesses. It's really about understanding the right tool for the job and when to use what for which channel.
So to build off of that, Lauren, what would you say are some of the most important considerations when assessing your measurement strategy? Or to, put it another way, what does an effective CTV performance measurement strategy entail?
Sure. Yeah. I'd say in my opinion, there's a lot of considerations that need to go into strong measurement, but you definitely want to start with making sure you have clean and really consistent data collection. So all of your, tracked data points, they should be collected in the same way across your channels and your partners, just to make sure you have a controlled variable when you're evaluating performance. That's going to provide the foundation for a really trustworthy, measurement and modeling solution. Next would probably be, looking at the goals of your campaign, and really selecting a measurement strategy that aligns with those overall objectives. So for example, are you looking maybe to measure more down funnel impact of your marketing budget? In that case, tracking revenue and measuring, deduplicated return on ad spend is going to be the most important element. Or are you maybe looking to prove just like what is the true impact of this new channel that I'm launching? In which case, measuring more incremental lift, could be the important element for those campaigns. So setting up the strategy according to those goals. And definitely, you'll want to make sure that your measurement strategy is also allowing for fair attribution across different types of marketing efforts. So that has methods that make sense for the different touch points that you are measuring. So if we think about CTV, for example, or even more specifically CTV with Mountain, we don't run any TV ads that are clickable. So we use an attribution model and partner with, platforms like Rockerbox that kind of use that same attribution model that's able to measure and validate cross-device site traffic and conversions that we can see were influenced and driven by your TV ads. So that's more of a curated attribution specific to a channel that isn't clickable, that can provide more of an apples to apples comparison for performance of TV against all of your other channels that you're running as well. I'd say the last thing, you definitely want flexibility and options when you're evaluating performance data, when you're looking at different attribution models. So this can include, looking at different views and different windows based on like, what is the campaign priority? What is my strategy here? So in Mountain, for example, we have different visit and conversion windows that are customizable. We also have first touch and last touch visit data that you can look at. And I know Rockerbox has similar attribution options around windows and models, as well as, MTA and MMM. And so lots of options for advertisers to use, again, based on really what is their campaign objectives.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I think everything kind of comes back to how you want to set your goals for CTV. For instance, the first thing you want to understand is that KPI by what type of CTV you're running. For instance, if it's prospecting, are you really looking to drive leads, or let's say top of funnel actions like view products? Or if it's a retargeting strategy, are you looking to really drive or measure your CTV campaigns against something like purchases? And from there, I think the next step is really benchmarking performance of where you expect those tactics to, or where you expect CTV to perform against existing prospecting tactics or existing retargeting tactics. And then lastly, making sure that you have the right tool to measure those goals, whether that's understanding paths to conversion, leveraging daily MTA attribution, how to budget or forecast that ROAS from CTV performance from a monthly or quarterly perspective, or understanding that point in time lift via like incrementality.
So to keep kind of building off of this conversation, Lauren, for any of our viewers who are specifically new to TV, where should they start to think about CTV measurement? Are there any good, I feel like we've talked about some so far, but are there any good like initial first steps that you recommend they should take?
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, at Mountain, the majority of our customers come in and are brand new to CTV. So they're kind of launching this channel for the first time. And so I definitely think the most important place to start is to just select a partner that's going to understand and value the nature of a channel like CTV, and really how it can fit into the marketing funnel, how it can impact the customer journey. while it is able to produce results really similar to bottom funnel channels like search and social, it doesn't behave in quite the same way. It's not the same type of ad unit, etc. So really choosing a partner that, let's say, primarily measures engagement through ad clicks and has built their marketing foundation on that source isn't going to be as useful, right? So I think, in my opinion, even for channels that are clickable, clicks really are only a small part of the true customer engagement story. And in this day and age, many of us can agree probably clicking on ads is not our norm. But we are all influenced, right, by different marketing efforts from a brand, and all of the ads or different touch points that we encounter from a brand are going to contribute likely to our consumer decision in some way. And so, like in Rockerbox, we see this all the time. Sometimes it can take more than 50 or more touch points to end in that conversion event. So a good measurement methodology is going to factor in that whole picture. And that includes, specific to CTV, that what is the cross-device impact? It can also include, what is the incremental impact? Maybe looking at probabilistic modeling, additional ways to measure how something like CTV is actually driving bottom funnel results outside of kind of just the traditional measurement methodologies.
Yeah, really driving home what Lauren opened up with. I think the most important piece here is to pick an attribution partner or measurement solution that measures views for CTV. Like Lauren said, nobody really clicks ads that often anymore. We think are all very aware of privacy and making sure that we're not followed around the internet too much. And views are going to be more and more, like, increasingly important to measure because of that. Next to that, I'd also say what's really important in CTV measurement, especially if you're starting for the first time, is really solidifying your understanding of the path to conversion and where CTV fits on that space. At Rockerbox, we often find that, tactics that you expect to be prospecting may not always be prospecting. They might not be the first touch. Sometimes they might be retargeting, or really solidifying those which CTV pieces are retargeting. So that way you're able to properly benchmark and measure what you believe CTV should perform at, which will ultimately help you in those optimization decisions.
So I feel like we've already started to touch on this, but kind of to dig into it a little bit more. So one of the reasons connected TV has traditionally been seen as this, confusing, difficult to measure space is because, unlike other performance channels like paid search and social, where it's been relatively simple to track, clicks and actions, as you mentioned, Lauren, the TV screen isn't clickable in the same way. So with this in mind, Lauren, how can CTV advertisers start to simplify their measurement solutions?
My dog's getting excited in the background. Yeah, I think this is the discussion around tracking clicks and tracking channels that don't have clicks. While it's been around a long time, it's not going away. There are still a lot of platforms out there that really focus on kind of a click-based model, even though they can ingest data in other ways. That's really still their primary focus. And certainly I think, historically it's been maybe the biggest hurdle in accurate measurement for a channel like CTV. You can't click on the ad. So how do I factor in, this into my traditional attribution model in GA or, some of the others? So honestly, our answer to that has been developing that cross-device attribution methodology. Again, it's allowing you to look at where am I getting, how am I getting both website traffic and actual engagement or conversion events following a TV ad that I served to this household. So for example, at Mountain, we call this cross-device verified visits. And specifically what it's measuring is after seeing a TV ad in the household. So I just saw an ad, let's say for Rockerbox on my TV. If I go and visit the Rockerbox site on one of my personal devices within that household, can we match that back to that TV ad impression? And we allow our advertisers to customize this model with attribution windows, both for like the visit event and the conversion event. And really, I think, we built this a long time ago, even before we were in the CTV space, because we knew that click-based attribution is not going to tell the whole story for really any channel. And so I think, that's the best way to really simplify, your solution is partner with a platform or a provider that does provide more of a holistic measurement, not just for CTV, but for all of your channels. So even if they are clickable, we want to see, what is the full picture of how they're contributing to that customer journey, not just driving, direct last click.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best way to simplify measurement solutions is just to make what is measurable more and more deterministic. The reason that in the past or traditional models people have been so confident about is because clicks are one-to-one deterministic, right? If you click on an ad, you get either UTM tracking or some other form of tracking that says that yes, like this user clicked on the ad. The best way that CTV advertisers can simplify their measurement solutions is partnering with an attribution solution that also provides deterministic views, so that they're always confident in the data that they're using. Just like how Rockerbox has a strategic partnership with Mountain to ingest those verified visits, advertisers can be confident that the view-based data that we're getting is deterministic and not modeled or probabilistic.
So we already started to kind of, land on this point, but I kind of want to just talk about it more directly. So while TV has more traditionally been considered a brand awareness tool, what makes connected TV so powerful is that it can be used as a performance channel as well. So Lauren, can you speak to how Mountain advertisers are using CTV for their performance outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at Mountain, that's kind of our biggest challenge is to change that narrative of TV being really brand awareness and high funnel and untrackable, to think of it more in a performance sense, because our CTV advertisers can really be evaluating their CTV campaigns the same way they do for any of their more traditional performance driving channels. And actually, I think CTV strategies can span the full marketing funnel better than most. So the ability to grab the attention of that net new consumer that has never heard of our brand before, and actually drive action from lower funnel viewers, who maybe are familiar with our brand. So more specifically, like on the bottom funnel, business outcome side, we can measure conversions, revenue, return on ad spend. And we can report all the way down to the order ID, allowing for our customers to do their own order analysis and internal matchback with their business data to see where Mountain influenced specific orders. Additionally, for thinking more on like mid-funnel engagement, our advertisers will use CTV campaigns to drive metrics like first-time website visitors, or tracking, engagement events on the site, like downloads or signups, leads, etc. We also have the capability for first-party targeting and CRM targeting, where it allows advertisers to retarget people who've already been to the site, or if they already have a customer list for some reason, we can retarget them with CTV ads to try to drive them down the funnel. And then, of course, it's still worth mentioning that CTV campaigns can be really, really useful as a top funnel channel. So driving awareness or finding, net new consumers as a prospecting tactic. And we can measure, from those net new consumers all the way down again to return on investment and ROAS and conversions. But we still have all of those top funnel KPIs like reach, cost per completed view, impressions, household reach, frequency, CPM. And that's across all of our performance dimensions like geo, TV network. So really, you can see exactly where you're serving ads, where and how many households you're able to reach within, your different dimensions. So I think all of this goes back to, being able to look at your campaigns and how they are performing against your goals, but also it's used in our platform's optimization engine to make sure that we're continually driving towards, the objectives that you set for each campaign.
Yep. Yeah. Echoing from a measurement perspective, it's really about validating what you're seeing in platform performance with tools like Rockerbox, right? It's measuring the outcomes you're seeing against the respective channels to benchmark your performance and make optimizations. For instance, when Mountain has a really efficient top of funnel campaign, it's great to be able to leverage that in Rockerbox and see duplicated performance against something like, let's say, non-brand, to maybe start to shift budgets out of traditional top of funnel channels and into experimenting more with something like CTV.
Okay, so with this shift to performance, of course, data becomes even more essential. So, Tasia, can you tell us how measurement setup really varies when using CTV as a performance tool?
Yeah, definitely. I think the measurement setups varies when you're leveraging CTV as a performance tool. First, from a goal setting perspective, right? It's about understanding which campaigns are optimizing to which events. If your campaigns are prospecting, right, Rockerbox will help you understand the deduplicated performance against driving leads or visits to site or even view product actions. And then if you're looking more at retargeting, like Rockerbox also really helps with making sure that your retargeting efforts are efficiently driving purchases. On top of all of that is having a really strong understanding of on that path to conversion where CTV sits and what channels it's overlapping with. So you understand when you're evaluating CTV as a performance tool, is it efficiently driving net new conversions to site?
Yeah, I'll
All right,
just
so go ahead, please.
very quickly. I think our advertisers can take those learnings from Rockerbox, and in Mountain, you can set up your campaign objectives to drive towards maybe something more bottom funnel or mid funnel. If you're learning a little bit more about where your prospecting campaign is fitting in that overall customer journey from Rockerbox, bring that back to Mountain and say, okay, maybe we need to adjust our campaign objective to be a little bit more top of funnel or mid funnel, etc.
So one of the many reasons why we're here today is that Rockerbox recently released the Unified Measurement Playbook. It's an incredibly comprehensive guide, just absolutely stacked with insights about Rockerbox's deep understanding of the ideal role of every measurement methodology. Now, today's attendees will have an opportunity to download this guide after our Q&A today. But Tasia, let's give everyone a little glimpse into what they'll find in your playbook. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about why it is important for marketers to unify their measurement strategies? How does Rockerbox approach unified measurement?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to start with what we're looking at on screen, the challenge with traditional measurement. It's inconsistency in measurement capabilities. For instance, tracking like traditional measurement capabilities may over rely on something like click-based tracking, which underreports view-based channels like Mountain, or the effect of other CTV providers, or even other paid social like TikTok and Facebook on the paths to conversion. Another problem here would be like something like leveraging last touch attribution only would underreport the impact of prospecting and navigational channels on conversions. These and other difficulties in measurement often lead to fragmented data, leading to those misaligned insights. On the next slide, we can talk through a bit about how Rockerbox strongly believes in a view of unified measurement across the methodologies involving calibration to unify KPIs to report on. What we want is to start by building a strong data foundation that collects spend, touch points, and conversions, and building out those paths to conversion and helping understand deduplicated attribution. On the next slide, I think we go a little bit more into that data foundation. So Rockerbox really strongly believes, again, that data foundation where we have a good number of integrations with the vendors to make sure that we're ingesting spend, as well as tracking touch points and tying those back to spend, all against those conversions to build out deduplicate attribution and understand the true impact of each touch point on a path to marketing. And then on the next slide, that's how we get to deduplicated attribution. On top of this, we assign multi-channel. We want to make sure that every touch point gets the true credit for how much for the impact that it's driving on that path to conversion. This also helps you understand paths to conversion, including the channel mix at each stage of the funnel, understanding what is your best performing top of funnel channel, best performing bottom of funnel channels, as well as any overlaps on where channels are working together to help drive the purchases. And then on the next slide, we have on top of data foundation, a couple different validation methodologies to continue to refine measurement. So we believe that while multi-touch attribution really provides the daily hub for optimizations with that strong data foundation, there are opportunities to continue calibrating the type of attribution, leveraging additional measurement methodologies such as MMM or incrementality. For instance, we can leverage MMM to help adjust the weights of multi-touch attribution, knowing that MMM is mostly like a monthly or quarterly forecasting and budgeting tool. And then we can leverage point-in-time incrementality testing to also adjust the weights of MTA or even calibrate future MMM models by leveraging the use of priors. And then lastly, each of these methodologies have different measurement outputs by design, but ultimately we know that marketers need to present one unified KPI internally to make sense of marketing and make decisions. And that's where we come in with unified. Again, against that data foundation, we leverage that MMM and incrementality to make sure that marketers are clear in what is the centralized CPA or ROAS that you're looking for against each channel to help make marketing decisions.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us that really great overview of, of exactly this unified measurement approach. But since we're really kind of focused on CTV today, Tasha, can you give our audience an idea of exactly where CTV fits into this unified approach to measurement?
Yeah, absolutely. So for CTV specifically, let's say if you were just getting started with CTV, where CTV fits in is first in that strong data foundation, making sure that you understand deduplicated attribution credit back to CTV. On top of that, it's building out the foundational paths to conversion data to help you understand from a funnel position where CTV sits. And if you are also again, if you're just starting CTV, you might not have enough historical data to build out an MMM model, which is where we'd want to use incrementality or point in time testing to better understand the incremental lift of CTV against conversions. Now, let's say if you were running CTV for like a couple years, then we'd have enough historical data to build CTV into an MMM model to help understand budgeting and forecasting against CTV. And then also leverage the use of incrementality and MTA to further calibrate both the MMM model as well as the MTA model to make sure that you're clear on what the unified KPI is against CTV.
Awesome. So there's so much insights in this playbook. I don't want to get too deep into everything that's covered because we'll just, be in the weeds before we know it. But I did want to touch on something that really jumped out at me as I was reading through it. How testing can validate attribution measurement. Tasha, I feel like we've touched on this already a little bit, but to get a little bit more deep into it, can you speak a little more on where testing fits in within this ecosystem of unified measurement? And what would you suggest someone who is new to testing do to get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. So testing fits within the unified ecosystem of helping calibrate both MMM and MTA. There are times where MTA sometimes underweights the performance of top of funnel channels where brands have an instinctive knowledge that, let's say brand awareness channels strongly perform and have a good impact on driving conversions. Testing can help us identify or quantify the incremental lift of a specific channel, which helps us calibrate an MTA weight against that channel's touch points. For instance, if let's say a brand is running like a very strong awareness play through mountain, and in let's say on an MTA or path to conversion, all they're seeing is like a lot of good channel overlap, but deduplicated attribution isn't giving CTV the weight that a brand believes. We can use testing to prove out that CTV placement actually deserves a lot more credit, and then calibrate the MTA model to make sure that it's getting the appropriate credit. On the MMM side, testing can help if the output of MMM will tell you like for an expected budget, what you can expect in terms of ROAS returns from that budget. Sometimes that may result in very confident intervals or less confident intervals for where that budget can come into. By leveraging incrementality testing, what we can actually do is narrow how confident we are to make sure that MMM is more accurately predicting the ROAS returns from a given budget. And so that's how testing fits into both MTA and MMM as a calibration strategy against both. If someone's new to testing marketing campaigns, I would suggest picking a handful of campaigns and running something like a geo experiment test to kind of get started and make sure that they understand from a calibration perspective, like what they're really looking to get out of the test to start testing with. Because the second piece here is really determine a testing timeline and roadmap. Testing is one of those things where it requires you to turn off some spend and keep some spend on, which is why it may not be an always on or like a viable always on strategy akin to like MTA or MMM, which is why it's really important to align on a timeline, a budget, and what you're willing to, where you're willing to turn off or on spend.
Now, one reason why I really wanted to bring up testing is because something that not everyone may know about connected TV is that you can also test your ads just like you would on paid search and social. Lauren, can you tell our viewers how testing works on connected TV? Is it as straightforward as what a marketer may find on other performance channels?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and kind of like Tay just explained, well, Rockerbox is really great at testing the overall channels and campaigns and budgets against each other. Within the Mountain platform specifically, you can test really specific granular elements of your CTV campaigns just like you can any of your other digital channels, and it's really straightforward. So for example, testing different creatives is a really common one. Within the same campaign, that can be as simple as testing different video links, or more complex elements like different product concepts or different brand value propositions, etc. So I'd say creative testing is probably our most common. But you also want to test things like your audience personas, even, testing different audience targeting types, things like, in market or interest-based versus competitive conquesting, etc. And keeping all of the other variables consistent, like creative, budget, geo, to really isolate what, that performance difference. And then, you can really also test and measure performance for more granular elements like different geos that you're serving in, TV networks that you're serving on, specific audience, third-party audience segments themselves. And really that allows you to keep learning and iterating your campaign strategy. And what's nice is that Mountain is going to provide that really granular performance data across all of those different dimensions so that you can have a really clear test analysis. But also, since our platform technology is already automatically optimizing for, all of these different variables, and it's going to be driving towards the best possible performance by allocating budget across where it's seeing stronger results. You don't have to rely on testing for actually, driving campaign performance, but instead you can, use testing to allow to gather like more important insights and learnings about your product, your brand, your audience, etc., and make some of those larger scale decisions.
Great. Now I want to shift gears just a bit. So from both of your perspectives, what are some of the tools and resources that you would encourage CTV advertisers to add to their performance strategy?
I can start. Yeah, I highly encourage advertisers to use various different methodologies to evaluate their CTV efforts and to inform their strategy. In Mountain, we are looking at just the overall impact of CTV specifically. We're not looking at, how that falls within the customer journey and the other channels that you're running. So we encourage our advertisers to use partners like Rockerbox, and to factor in multi-channel attribution, as well as, MMM models. Those are especially insightful for, a top funnel channel like CTV, because it will factor in not just that straightforward outcome data. It can account for business changes, for fluctuations, for different variables that are going to be at play, and can provide that more holistic view of what's the overall impact of CTV to my bottom line. I think that's great for informing budget allocation, especially, during periods of uncertainty like seasonality. And then we also really encourage other measurement like incrementality testing. We've talked a little bit about. We have that in our platform. There are a lot of other partners as well. And then even things like brand lift surveys, both of these can be useful in measuring, again, what is the true impact of my CTV efforts, really outside of like, did it drive a direct, conversion? And so that can inform, maybe your audience or your creative strategy a little bit more to ensure that your message is really resonating with the right consumers and motivating them to go take action, controlling for all of the other variables at play.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only one answer from my perspective, and it's partnering with Rockerbox. Partnering with Rockerbox will make sure that we help track all your touch points, all your spend, and your conversions to help build a strong data foundation and really a platform which puts you in a position to continue to run and measure CTV with confidence. And then, of course, like leverage additional methodologies on top, like MTA, MMM, incrementality tests, and even survey responses to continue refining your measurement and ultimately help you provide a unified KPI to make decisions off of.
All right, now I want to look at the year ahead. Are there any trends or predictions in measurement that you believe will define 2025?
Yeah. One that we've been thinking about here at Rockerbox around measurement specifically is actually the uncertainty of TikTok, meaning that advertisers are going to start testing into other top of funnel sources outside of TikTok. Things like, let's say, Pinterest, a top of funnel, or other top of funnel strategies like CTV as budget opens up, let's say, if TikTok disappears tomorrow. The other piece that we're definitely thinking about moving into 2025 is that now that we're moving past macroeconomic uncertainty, people are moving more and more into testing new channels, as well as testing as a measurement methodology as they launch new channels and test new tactics. The past year and a half we found was really based around profitability, especially with those macroeconomic factors, which means that they were focused heavily on MMM to make sure that they were focused on top line profitability. I think as they launch new channels, the question now becomes more and more whether or not these new channels are incremental to their strategy, and if they continue to have value to be run.
Yeah, I couldn't be more aligned. I think advertisers are going to keep moving away from some of the more traditional channels and the traditional and maybe limiting measurement partners, and feel more comfortable expanding their efforts beyond what's conventional, what's easy, what's straightforward. We're getting more sophisticated with how we can measure some of these new channels. And so I think advertisers will keep seeing the value in a more of a unified approach that includes methods like data-driven modeling, incrementality, survey, etc., to better understand that full picture and give them the confidence to be testing new channels, testing channels that aren't, as direct response, and there'll be less reliance on, those individual bottom funnel channels, and maybe even less reliance on individual platform measurement data, even Mountain, for example. You want to supplement that more and more with partners like Rockerbox. I think advertisers are going to get more and more comfortable doing so.
So I feel like our conversation has given everyone a lot of food for thought for how they can approach measurement throughout the year. But what about in the near term, like for tomorrow? Is there something a marketer can do right now that can help make their measurement approach stronger in the near term?
I can answer first. We're both so polite. Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed this a little bit earlier, but definitely, the best thing you can start with is ensuring a really strong foundation with clean and consistent data collection across your channels. I know it seems like so obvious and straightforward, but it really is essential to make sure you're aligning exactly, what data points you are tracking across all of your partners, so that you can then have a really apples to apples comparison, with whatever measurement provider that you do choose. And that is also, going to be a really important element as well. Pick a strong partner that can address both your current measurement needs, and then also help you work towards, your larger and more long-term goals. So you're evaluating and tracking the full picture of your marketing efforts, both on a granular scale and a macro scale, how they're falling into the customer journey. And that's going to allow for the groundwork for more, reliable analysis moving forward.
Yeah, I'd say the first step that any marketer can take is making sure that they have a holistic approach to measurement that provides truth and performance, making sure that means that they're measuring across clicks, views, surveys, any touch point that they're able to click to really start to build out that data foundation across leveraging deduplicated performance. And then from there, they can spend like the rest of the year building on top of that performance.
Great. Now, before we start really wrapping up this discussion, I had one final question for both of you. So to sum up today's talk, from your perspective, what do you think is the most important thing you'd like our audience to take away from today's discussion about CTV measurement?
Yeah, I can start. I'd say the most important thing, and one thing that we've both hit on consistently, is making sure that you build a strong data foundation for both CTV and measurement of all channels. Without a strong data foundation, I'd say it's really hard to even start to think about other measurement capability or methodologies, because what you ultimately will have is an incomplete view of data that you are trying to get insights from. So having that foundation, understanding from a deduplicated perspective, like what channels are truly driving to, or what channels are really touch points on a path to conversion, is going to be the most important key takeaway.
Yeah, I'm aligned there. I also think, making sure, like we've talked about, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but identify a partner that values that full funnel and can use all of those data sources and that really strong foundation to give you that more like unified holistic view of all of your channels and all of your efforts and your campaigns. And then, utilize different lenses of attribution and validation. So depending on your objective, is it prospecting? Is it retargeting? Am I still trying to figure out where it fits somewhere in the middle? Make sure that you have options when you're looking at performance and attribution lenses. And then, keep testing, use your measurement insights to inform the elements of your campaign strategy. Try something new, try a new channel, try a new creative direction. Keep providing those variations so that the measurement can actually be working for you.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren and Tasia, for this discussion about connected TV measurement. You really shared some stellar insights that I hope have given folks at home some ideas on how they can start to unify their measurement approach. And it does look like we do have some questions from the audience. So let's just jump right into the Q&A. All right, Lauren, I'm going to throw this first one over to you. So the question asks, I'm a B2B brand. Is adding CTV actually going to drive any results for me, or should I stick to paid search and social?
Yeah, I love this question. I think that's a big misnomer about who should be advertising on TV. We have a ton of B2B brands. They make a really large portion of our customer base at Mountain for a couple of different reasons. On the measurement side, we can track any type of site engagement events that matter to them. So obviously leads, but also things like form submission, signups, downloads, even visits to like a specific page on the site, free trials. The options are really endless. And so that option to actually measure performance from a channel like TV for B2B is the same as their other, digital and performance channels. But I'd say even more impactful for B2B brands is our targeting options on TV. We actually have the largest marketplace of third-party audience segments for connected television. And what that allows our B2B advertisers to do is really hone in on consumers based on really granular attributes like job title, company size, the industry that they work in, even professional groups or interests that they align with, past purchase behavior, so buying, similar software or parallel products, competitive conquesting from other brands that are in the same space. So it allows us to get really granular with trying to hone in on their target demographic. And then we also have our AI generated keyword targeting solution called Mountain Matched, which basically uses AI to match in-market consumers to that specific brand and their specific products or services that they offer. So that's been really powerful at driving really strong results from, a really high-powered ad unit like TV. So, and then the other thing I'll add that's also really critical for B2B brands is that they can use their own first-party data to target. So many times they have these, really robust prospect lists, and we're able to target that specific consumer with a curated TV ad, right in the home of the executive that brand X is trying to get in front of. So I'd say all of these combined with, the testing options that they have in Mountain allows our B2B marketers to see, what is my bottom line down funnel performance, like lead volume and CPL. And it's going to be it's going to be comparable to what you see on other performance channels, but I think TV gives you a much greater reach. And really the ad impact can be a lot more beneficial.
Awesome. Tasia, I'm going to throw this next one over to you. So the question asks, how can I be sure that connected TV is what is driving traffic and not my other efforts?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Rockerbox tracks, again, like all the different touch points and builds out those paths to conversion against purchases, right? So that means that we can track a deterministic CTV touch point against a purchase and also understand from a funnel perspective how often CTV is either the first touch point, the middle touch point, or sometimes even the very last touch point against a conversion, making sure that marketers are sure that CTV is the one driving those conversions. On top of that, we're also able to, again, like leverage additional measurement methodologies like an incrementality study to show that TV actually has an incremental lift within within your marketing mix to make sure that TV or like CTV specifically is driving those conversions, and it's not another channel like, let's say, paid social or paid search.
So to kind of jump off that question with another audience question, Teja, can you speak a little bit more about kind of what you mean by deterministic versus probabilistic?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two types of tracking across marketing. Deterministic is like one-to-one where we're exactly sure that this touch point happened. A very clear example of this is a click, right? When a click happens, UTMs populate, or let's say landing page params populate, and you're very sure that that touch point was clicked. Probabilistic involves something like the use of a statistical model to help you understand if with a strong confidence whether or not this touch point happened. Something like this would be like, for instance, linear TV or lift analysis from linear TV, right? Because there's not something clickable. You're not actually getting something like an impression log to say this user had this impression. Now, for CTV with Mountain specifically, Rockerbox has a strategic partnership where we actually are getting those verified visits back from Mountain, which are deterministically tracked views from Mountain's end to build those into Rockerbox attribution. So that's the difference between deterministic and probabilistic.
Gotcha. Thank you. Kind of continuing to build off of that, how are you deduplicating, especially in the cross-device measurement? Can you just speak a little bit more about kind of what that means and what that looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So for deduplicating, right, we have a path to conversion against every single user. What we do is against every visitor to site, we assign something like an anonymous identifier that is persistent across that user session, let's say on one browser. Against that, we start building out what we call an identity graph to help understand the attributes of this user. And so that may involve things like an IP address, or that UID that we have, the anonymous ID. Again, let's say within a household, that IP address piece is what helps you go against our cross-device tracking. We use all of those to build out a user profile to understand what touch points led this user to a convert, and then tie all those back to a piece of PII that we get on the purchase event, whether that's an email or a phone number, to build out one full path to conversion. And so that's how, against that path to conversion, we can deduplicate by understanding that this one conversion had, let's say, like 4 touch points. And where the duplication differs from what you're seeing in platform is, let's say those 4 touch points were 2 Google touch points, like paid search non-brand, and then let's say paid display, and then a Facebook touch point, and then finally an email touch point. Each of those vendors will take some credit for this conversion, right? Which means that they will say that this was actually 3 different conversions or 4 different conversions. Rockerbox sees all of those touch points and says each of those touch points gets something like 0.25 credit, which is how we deduplicate that path, or we deduplicate that conversion and distribute credit back against the path.
Awesome. All right, I think we have time for one more question. So Laura, I'm going to send this one your way. The question asks, I want to get started on CTV. Should I be launching with 2 creatives so I can test, or is it okay to launch with only 1?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to TV creatives, yes, we definitely don't have as much of an unlimited resource as you might with other types of ad units. But the more, if you do have more than one creative, the more elements to test, the better. We just don't think it should ever limit or hold back your CTV launch to try to get on this new channel, right? It's far more important to get started and start gaining exposure on CTV. So even with a single TV video or commercial, get started on TV, establish like the baseline for performance on this channel, garner some audience insights, better identify, what is going to be your overall potential for connected television. And from there, you'll have a better idea of what's resonating well with your audience, what they're responding to, what's driving, visits and conversions. And you can use this insight to go build additional TV creatives. And at Mountain, we definitely help our advertisers on this front. We have a full video creative division called Quick Frame that can help brands produce net new live action TV commercials, or can even help them repurpose existing video assets that they already have and turning that into a full-blown TV commercial that we can launch. And honestly, we partnered with QuickFrame originally because we wanted to take away this really common barrier that advertisers have to getting started on CTV. And that way, we're democratizing TV advertising, right? Brands of all shapes and sizes can now be running on this highly effective channel without, needing to break the bank with a full blown Super Bowl ad or anything like that. So we definitely say use what you have, get started as soon as you can, and we can help you build additional creative variations as you go.
Well, thank you again, Lauren and Tasia, and thanks to all of you for joining us for our very first Mountain Forum of 2025. Now, if you would like to download Rockerbox's unified measurement playbook, scan the QR code you should see on your screen. And if you are so glued to your screen that you didn't take as many notes as you'd have liked, hey, that's what post-show emails were invented for, and you will receive one with a recording of this session in the near future. Now, if you enjoyed this discussion and want to watch more like it, check out our back catalog of on-demand events at mountain.com/webinars. You'll also be able to register for our next event, which is coming up soon with Ad Week, a playbook for first-time CTV advertisers. If you're looking to get jumpstart on the channel in 2025, it's a presentation that you won't want to miss. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll see you at the next forum.